I know it's Tuesday because you were traveling. I was supposed to be traveling today. We got snowmageddon upon us. But, Paul, it is a great day to talk about football. Let me just tell you.
Let me throw something by you, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
a major underdog entered the Super Bowl and beat a team called the Rams.
Hmm.
And I keep forgetting if I've said this publicly or privately, but I predicted to you at the
You
start
did.
of the playoffs that the Bengals would win the Super Bowl this year. And I don't mean this in an insulting way. This year has been crazy. And so it's kind of enabled this kind of thing to happen. As a Patriots fan, because I grew up there, I'm delighted to see Kansas City fall into the same hole that the Seattle, whatever that team's called, who cares, fell into the one-hit wonder kind of, we thought we were a dynasty, not even close kind
Mm-hmm.
of problem. So this is a wonderful opening for the Bengals. We already had, didn't we? We did a San Francisco Kansas City Super Bowl, right? Or are they in the same division? Maybe that was their
I
playoff
mean, I
game.
don't
I
think
don't
so.
remember.
I think they're on the same side.
Oh,
They're both
okay.
NFC.
So they had a major playoff game at some point in the past, which was terrible. And this could be an exciting game.
Yeah.
Right. Heisman quarterbacks. Right. Kind of relative unknowns. I mean, for the NFL, maybe this isn't the the major market thing they were looking for, but for football fans,
It's been the best
this could be
playoffs
a
ever.
great game. Most Super Bowls are not great games.
Right.
So, anyway, congratulations.
I literally might die from this. Like, I almost died 3 times this playoffs because the Bengals
Yeah.
Bengals can't just win. They have to win in very, very dramatic fashion. And
overtime. Yeah, of course.
like I felt so the game was at 3:00 and it's like we're heading into overtime and like I'm downstairs by myself. My wife refuses to watch football with me at this point because I am a nervous, sweaty wreck. And like my daughter, I felt so bad. My daughter comes down like she had pigs on a blanket, like other snacks, and she's handing it to me like, put them on the table, I can't right now.
It's like, Daddy, why are you crying?
I was dying. It was bad. Yeah, but they won.
That's neat.
They've gone into. They've beaten Kansas.
I mean, you can't think like this. It's impossible as a sports fan. But the proper way to think about this is the team has already achieved such an incredible level of success that honestly it shouldn't matter. Like it's like this has already been incredible.
Yep.
But that's an impossibility.
years
Nobody is
ago,
that
Paul,
even killed.
2 years ago, they had 2 wins. Last year, they had 4.
Right.
We were in last place both times in our division by a wide margin. So, anyways,
it's good.
Yeah, we got. It'll be interesting to watch. And Stafford was at the Lions. Like, can you imagine leaving the Lions and then the next year you're
right. Well, this is. I'm not to go on. People are going to be so bored by this, but I mean, one of the fascinating things to me about football, I always say this, is that the lineups that face each other are always these unique combinations of variables and players who might have not fit in somewhere do incredibly well on this other team, and all of a sudden it's the perfect matchup with the guy on the offense or defense of the other team, blah, 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 whatever. But you can kind of expand that to include the coaching staffs, right? Guys who, did a terrific, like Josh McDaniels or whatever, didn't do very well as a head coach in, where do you go? Denver.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but genius as a defensive coordinator, that kind of thing. So, nobody knows what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter. But I mean, football is the ultimate team sport in the sense that the team is so big, right?
Yep.
It's one thing to have like 5 guys on a court, like in basketball, where there are 6, whatever it is, and it's a small thing, or soccer or baseball, where guys stand out in the middle of nowhere doing nothing most of the game, but can make incredible plays that really matter at key moments, that kind of thing. But football is 2 armies facing each other, hitting each other, slogging it out for 3 hours straight. And it's unique. It's just, and I know people are gonna argue that point, but it's unique. And yes, this is exciting.
I even looked at tickets. I was like, man, like,
no, there's no.
fine.
Well, actually, you know what though? For Super Bowls, this might be one of the better chances. It's something my friends and I have talked about a lot, going to some random Super Bowl game. Oddly enough, that conversation has not come up now that it's a possibility, which I think says a lot about my friends. But yeah, so what did it look like? What were the ticket prices?
If you go through the Bengals, $5,000.
Yeah, and that's the lowest they could possibly be.
Well, they could be more. They could be less. So that was right now the only way right now you can get a Super Bowl ticket if you're a non-season ticket holder right now. And even if you're a season ticket holder, you have to win the lottery.
It's a lottery, yeah. Of course it would be.
You have to buy a package. That's the only way. They're doing the GameStop deal, right? You got to buy like a pre-game thing, a post-game thing, and like it's
Where is the Super Bowl?
It's in L.A. If this was someplace like Atlanta where I could drive and I wouldn't have to pay for a flight, I would be more inclined to be like, it's fine. But $5,000 plus a flight plus a couple nights in a hotel. I mean, and not to mention, like, what if my wife goes, I'd like to go too, and then it's like a $13,000 weekend.
Yeah, of course it is.
And then it's
is there any?
Yeah.
Is your team going to do something like where you could go to the local?
I think they're going to open the stadium up and do stuff.
That's
we'll see.
Kind of fun. Yeah.
At this point I have no problem screaming and crying and whatever I have to do in my basement on the Super Bowl. Anyways.
Yeah. No, I was at the game when the Celtics won the NBA championship in 2008, and growing up in the 80s, 2008 championship is not. It's not as historic or whatever as monumental as the Larry Bird stuff from the 80s, but it was still awesome being there and getting hugged by the guy behind me who was wearing a Bill Walton mask. Which is, it's incredible to be at such a thing. So,
anyways, people who probably could afford to go to the Super Bowl are Bungie, who, freeing themselves from the shackles of the corporate overlords, have decided to shackle themselves to the corporate overlords of Sony this time, rather than was it Activision? Who owned them?
Who owned them?
Yeah.
No, Microsoft owned them.
I thought they were part of Activision, or was it Microsoft?
No, Microsoft bought them in 2000 to bring Halo to the original Xbox.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, and then I don't remember what year, but fairly recently they spun off Bungie, keeping Halo, right? So Bungie created a game called Destiny, which is very, very much like Halo, I would say. But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I think I know what you're referring to. There was a Titanfall was a game owned by EA, maybe, or Activision. I don't remember which one of those two. Titanfall and Destiny are two games where the first title needed some work, and those problems were fixed in the second game. Is it Titanfall? Am I thinking of the right game? I think it's Titanfall. I don't know. That's where my head's at. But yeah, I don't understand what they're doing here. Right? Like, it's understandable that Bungie, having been alone, are on their own for a few years and, had some success for sure with Destiny, needed or wanted the money, and they're going to cash out or whatever. I guess we all understand that. Although, like you said, like, you were under the corporate yoke before. Like, what are you doing? But they want the money. Why the heck would Sony want Bungie, right? They're basically a one-hit wonder at this point. They don't own that hit.
Yeah. So there's a couple things here. First off, so the Activision part that I was thinking of is Activision was the publisher of Destiny for 8 years or something like that. And so then Bungie acquired the publishing rights from Activision. That's what I was thinking of.
So now they're okay. So
they're
okay. Well, now they're not, but
supposedly what Sony wants out of this Bungie deal is the technology that they use for their online services, so their online gameplay. Like, that was the more lucrative part, I think. I mean, the title is one thing and all that, but the back end
game. I mean, like,
technology.
Seriously, I'm sure Destiny 3 will be fantastic, but like, are you kidding me? To me, this is like a warning to Microsoft, right? So, and it's also kind of a consummation of a new strategy in the video game industry that Microsoft got to first, which is that this console exclusive thing doesn't really make that much sense anymore. Microsoft was heavily criticized when they changed the dynamic or even the terminology around exclusive to be Xbox exclusive, right? Xbox, not meaning a console, but Xbox as a platform that runs on multiple endpoints. And they were like, oh, it's not exclusive. It runs on the PC. Now it's like, oh, it's not exclusive. It runs on everything because it's like the cloud. Well, Sony's doing exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they hinted at that in a blog post when they announced this. And then that's all fine. It makes sense. Like it is rare for the first company to do something to be the one that succeeds in that market. So, Sony could still, come on, we'll see what happens. But geez, I mean, you know what this reminds me of, even though they're not equivalent in any real way, but Microsoft wanted to buy DoubleClick, 15 whatever years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually Google got it out from under them, and Google is now like the biggest ad empire in the world. Like, it's, disgusting. And knee jerk, Microsoft bought a company. Do you remember the name?
Aquantive?
Perfect. Yes. Okay. The fact that you had to struggle to even come up with the name is exactly right, because they I guess they were number two, but they were number two. Like, there's a McDonald's and then there's a kid in the corner selling hamburgers out of his parents' driveway. Like, and that thing went bust. I think they wrote it off, or whatever the end game was for it. But, Microsoft wants to buy Activision Blizzard for like $70 billion, basically. This thing is like we want to buy one of the games, and it's not the top game. It's like one of the games in the middle, and it's like, okay, it's not much of a response. I mean, I think there's going to be more. I think Sony is going to have to acquire more game studios,
It's going to be, so I don't necessarily think this Bungie acquisition was a Microsoft buying Activision, we're going to go buy something. Mostly because I think these conversations take a while. This did not come together in 2 weeks. I mean,
well, but they also had to know that Activision was on the table,
Yeah, I mean, it might have come up a little faster.
Oh, I don't mean that these are one-to-ones. I mean,
Sure.
Honestly, to what you were saying, I think Microsoft, I think it's still a response. I think I know Microsoft had spent the previous 2-3 years, whatever it is, snatching up every studio it could. Sony already had a lot of studios.
Mm-hmm.
Sony, at some point in the last year and a half or 2 years, whatever it was, found itself going from number one from game studio ownership to number two. And now they're actually a distant number two. And I think that what they realized is what I said earlier, which is you need to be on all the platforms you can to expand your, in their case, their PlayStation platform to as many endpoints as possible, just like Microsoft has done with Xbox. And you need content, because that exclusive content, the notion of exclusivity, has expanded dramatically. So they have all these great franchises that are only on the PlayStation. They need to have those, available through streaming and, whatever. I know they have PS Now that works. I think it's probably just PC and PlayStation at this point. But this is the way the industry's going. So yeah, it's just a small cog. It's like a little piece, but it is part of that strategy, I think, for the future. Like, if Sony wants to continue its domination of the console industry and expand it to this bigger market, they need, you can't be Netflix without having all the original titles. That's what makes you that dominant.
One of the more
Contents.
interesting things, and I haven't done enough digging into their balance sheet to really kind of understand Sony's position. I'm much more familiar with Microsoft's for many reasons.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But to go out and buy a company like Activision for $70 billion, I don't know if Sony could do it. They might be able to, but here's the reason why I hedged just a little bit. At CES, Sony announced they're building a car. That is one of the most CapEx expensive ways to burn money, is to go say, I'm going to go build a car. I mean, that's multiple billions of dollars they just committed for something that they're going to build, and that is going to be a huge drain.
Sony's like a Samsung. They're, from our perspective, in our little corner of the world, we think of them as this thing, and they are that thing, but they're all these other things. One of Sony's most lucrative businesses is a life insurance company. This is not Microsoft. They're not the same, but they're not the same. It's, look, gaming is humongous right now. Gaming revenues already dwarf those of Hollywood movies, right? Not even close. It's more than double, I believe. Gaming is getting bigger and bigger. Esports are huge. They could become what sports are today, right? We just spent time talking about the Super Bowl. 10 years from now, we could be talking about the Titan Bowl, or the Titan Bowl, yeah. I was going to say the Titan Bowl, the Destiny Bowl, or whatever you want to call it. Oh, here comes my dog. She's very excited to be home. I've lost track as the dog is now nuzzling into the side of my leg here. Yes. Anyway, so gaming is humongous, and you see, the New York Times just bought Wordle. Yeah. Wordle is a mobile game created by one guy by himself, He made millions and millions of dollars. We don't know how many. This is several millions. And the New York Times sees that gaming is. They have this way of they contort it into language that makes sense for their audience. But basically, what they're saying is, we want to get words out to the world. This is gaming is one, and New York Times gaming is a thing. It just is. I have a big editorial to write about this today. And I don't want to get too far off track here, but in the sense that Microsoft has been an excellent steward for Minecraft, GitHub, LinkedIn will be for Activision, right? The New York Times is the worst possible steward for this game. Worst possible. So it was the best thing that could happen to that guy who went from just being a normal middle class house husband or whatever he was to being a multimillionaire. So I completely understand why he did what he did. But if you're a fan of that game, be prepared to pay and still see ads and to go on to something else because they're going to ruin it. They're terrible.
Yeah. So. My joke was when this came out was that Microsoft was amending some documents to put New York Times as a Game Pass competitor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm absolutely.
Yep.
Spotify. No, not Spotify. Netflix has started same thing, same rationale. It's like people get upset with like artists are leaving Spotify because of this Joe Rogan thing, right? For example, I that's fine. I completely support that. I get it. For the fans, it's not so great, and they're like, "What's going on here? Why would they choose this one podcaster over all these classic musicians or whatever?" Spotify is not a music company, guys. Spotify is a content company. They make money. They're there to make money. Netflix is not at heart like a video delivery system or a content creator. They deliver entertainment, generally speaking. We just mentioned how much bigger gaming is than the thing that Spotify is dominating, right? Obviously, they want to get into gaming. Everyone's getting into gaming. We're going to gamify everything, Brad.
You know what I think should happen? Yeah. And this is like pure fantasy. I seriously doubt it would ever happen. Is that Netflix should buy Stadia.
Wow.
That would be... I know, I
so
seriously doubt it would happen.
A second to digest that.
But like that would be a strategic acquisition that would make a lot of sense. By
the way, it's also a nice out for Google, right? And a nice end for it wouldn't be an end, hopefully, but for the people who do like Stadia is actually pretty great, by the way. I mean,
the technology of Stadia, there's no issue with. Like that's never been the question. It's the content library is where it's weak.
The content library is kind of so, and it's weird because Sony. Jesus. Sorry, so many companies here. Google has more money than most companies and could do right by Stadia, but Google as a company is also very flighty and always moves on to the next big thing. It's no, revelation that Google has dropped so many services. Netflix is focused. Netflix does this thing. Netflix could do right by Stadia for sure. That's actually not a horrible idea. Yeah, that would be good for a lot of people. A lot of companies, whatever.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We should be back tomorrow.
The only reason... so you're not going away? And
no, I'm not.
There's some snowstorm that's coming from New Mexico all the way to Ohio or something. What's the story on this?
So there's a massive snowstorm that's coming. So where I was headed, they're under a winter storm warning to get between. It's like 8 to 16 inches. I want nothing to do with that. Yeah. But the other problem is we might get it worse here. We're supposed to only get like 3 to 6 inches, but they're saying like maybe 2 inches of ice. And if that happens, there's no way I'm going to have power. So.
Speaking of storms, Boston got like 2 feet of snow. They tied some record. One of the big records they had was that year that I always cite, 2015. The reason I'm here now. We have maybe 2 inches of snow here, so it's nothing. It's still like 11 degrees though, and 11 degrees Fahrenheit is not great.
Yeah, when you were coming from 70,
it's terrible. So.
Anyways, big storm coming through. We'll see if whatever happens.
Good luck.
Yeah.
In all things.
In all things.
Sports and weather.